Well, hi, Michael. Welcome to Top of Mind, Florida.
2026.
2026.
Good to see you, buddy. Did you have a good holiday?
Good to see. I had a good holiday. Did you?
We had a great holiday. And now I see, and we're going to talk about it a little later, because I was just touched about something off camera that I used to get to see up close about a guy who is the best Santa elf in the world. And his helper, the big guy, of course, is in the North Pole again. We'll talk about that later. But Santa's helper, I also see a legislative session starting January 13th. And I know you have your political reporter list all put together.
Well, one can only hope that at some point they'll bring up 2-egg.
Yeah. 2-egg?
2-egg.
The big stuff.
Well, I'll tell you more about 2-egg later.
Okay, good.
It's a very important thing.
Good. Okay.
2-egg. Have you been there?
I have not. But you're going to take us there.
Okay.
That's all part of Top of Mind Florida.
Faye Dunaway was born near 2-egg.
Yeah. Okay.
You have no clue what I'm talking about, do you?
I don't. I was expecting to jump right out with legislative stuff, but I'm sure our viewers are sitting there with bated breath. So.
Well, I'll tell you more about it later.
Okay.
You want to move on with legislative stuff?
Unless Faye Dunaway is involved in the legislative.
Yeah, well, you never know.
Which would be very hard to do. Anyway, look forward to it. Always look forward to all of it. Let me ask you, though, January 13th. Gosh, years running by. Got a legislative session started. A lot going on. Can you guess what would be the first thing that I'd want to ask you about that I think is going to affect everybody this year?
What's that?
Property taxes.
Yeah.
And a big debate that for all of you at home could have significant impact in the years to come on your property tax bill. And it is going to be a fight. Talk about that.
Well, Peter Schorsch with Florida Politics wrote something about property taxes, and I thought he articulated it very well. He wrote, "Were it not so dangerously revolutionary, the idea of dramatically scaling back or outright eliminating property taxes in a state without an income tax would be the most ridiculous policy debate in modern Florida history." It's a great soundbite. Let's get rid of property taxes. Well, sure. Fine. I don't want to pay property taxes. Who wants to pay property taxes? On the other hand, what are we doing to local governments? What are we doing to
fire, police,
all of those things? And of course, they'll have exceptions and blah, 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 et cetera. But, to eliminate what's one of the biggest bases of our tax system in Florida that pays for everything, it's a great soundbite, and I'm sure they'll ultimately wind up passing some kind of property tax reform. There may be some additional exemptions or whatever. But the idea of eliminating the property tax seems like it's a bit of a legislative assault on local governments, which has been a big change in recent years, largely under the leadership of Ron DeSantis. It's like they just snubbed their nose at county governments and city governments, and they keep trying to take away more and more power from them, give more and more power to developers and stuff, and Lord knows the developers need more power. And, so this whole idea of getting rid of property taxes is interesting, but we'll see what they come out with. And when we're interviewing some of our legislators, it'd be interesting to see what they have to say about this.
It's funny, two things. One, we've been working together way too long, because I was reading the exact same quote last night from Florida Politics. He's a great writer, very insightful. Seems to fight the governor's full bore for cutting property taxes. Danny Perez, the House Speaker out of South Florida, has said and has criticized Governor DeSantis, say you have a slogan but no real plan. Danny Perez has talked about several measures he said would reduce property taxes, particularly for homesteaded properties. The governor's talked even about trying to get this on as a constitutional amendment, but there's a lot of talk that there's going to be at real loggerheads, and that we can expect a big fight among lawmakers, at least in the House and the governor, about where this goes this year. So a lot are expecting a very ugly session. So your thoughts?
Well, my evil Brian would say, fine, get rid of all the property taxes, and let's see where we go. Enjoy. It sort of reminds me when we had Michael Barnett, who's now a county judge, on, and he was the leader of the Palm Beach County Republican Party and wound up on the Palm Beach County Commission as an appointee for a year or so. And I'll never forget him saying, I was critical of local government, I was critical of county government, and then I got the job. and I found out how hard they worked, how complicated it is, how difficult it is, and I was wrong to be as critical as I was. And, some of these, talking points of let's get rid of all the property tax, part of it is sure. Let's do it. Let's see what happens.
and that's the good Brian. That's the not evil Brian part.
Let's eliminate speed limits and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's get rid of all the traffic signals. In
the free state of Florida, I don't know why we have stop signs.
Clearly not a man who's. This is a guy who goes out of his way, which I admire, to avoid I-95. Brian and I have been on many trips where I'm like, why are we going this way? I'm avoiding I-95. And many days on I-95,
Exactly.
I'll say to myself, Brian's a very wise man as I get the next crossover. We're going to see where that goes, but it's going to be huge as part of that affordability debate and push this year. Of course, we've got, the big elections going on. The legislature will be also tied up with the jockeying about what position, what bill, what law will help their favorite candidate. And the big Florida elections, of course, the gubernatorial race will dominate that this year. And that's, of course, not the only race. We have a Senate race with Miss Moody and a Democrat.
Yeah, it's a big election year.
And talk about that, though, because there'll be a lot of jockeying with the bills and laws around that.
Yeah, and we're closer to it. I mean, people don't people care about elections when we get closer to elections, but it's August. The primary. So we're talking 8 months.
Yeah. Boom.
On the Republican side, Byron Donalds has raised $45 million.
Trump endorsement.
It has a Trump endorsement. Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins there's been some talk about maybe he'll run, maybe he won't, but right now he seems to be not getting along very well with the governor. So, for a guy who's been lieutenant governor for a matter of months and now he's at odds with the governor, that's politics in the DeSantis administration. And then on the Democratic side, you have
you've got Jolly,
Jerry Demings and David Jolly, and I saw a report the other day that David Jolly in the last quarter raised $1 million.
Compare that to Byron Donalds' 45.
Yeah.
And in the same Florida Politics article, the writer you mentioned, who does great stuff, he talked about the fact that we're all going to talk about the Democratic race and the two leaders. It's a crowded field out there, Republicans and Democrats, but clearly Byron Donalds on the Republican side, Paul Renner, but he's a former House Speaker, but raised very little money, and he's at single-digit polling. Just to name another name, you've got Jolly, you've got Demings, but somebody said, listen, when all the shouting's done, the math is simply not going to be there for Democrats in Florida. So stiff upper lip if you're a Democratic candidate, hope against hope.
It's tough. It's going to, and of course what we've done in Venezuela will have some impact on Venezuelan voters and Cuban voters, and God knows what we may do in the weeks and months to come. There is a question, there's already been talk that Venezuelans and Cubans will now vote in very large numbers for Republicans. I would suggest they already were voting in large numbers for Republicans. So will this increase turnout? Will there be even more support? Possibly. But, Republicans have done such a great job of increasing their voter registration by 1.5 million more than Democrats. The Democratic Party statewide is still struggling, and I would sort of agree with those who say that it's still a very, very long shot for a Democrat to win a statewide race.
There's some argument, I'm curious for your thought on it, that on immigration, Venezuelans would be an example. On the one hand, many of them in the last month were cheering the capture of Nicolas Maduro, and we're going to continue to see how all of that plays out. But at the same time, worried about being deported for the last many months and saying, wait, you thought things were so bad in Venezuela, Trump administration, that you get Maduro out of there. You basically go in and grab Maduro. And yet we still have to worry about being deported to the very place that you say is horrible. And there is some argument that Republicans could face some backlash at the polls in Florida this year on the whole immigration debate. Do you see it that way, or is that a pipe dream for Democrats?
I'm going to go back to what I always go back to. Number one issue is the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how the economy is going in Florida
Mm-hmm.
and around the country, but in Florida, since we're talking about statewide elections, that may make the biggest difference. And Democrats are going to have to concentrate on that kind of a message. There's already talk that that oil prices may come way down. If that happens and gas prices go way down, that helps Republicans. If grocery prices and everything else stabilize or come down, that helps Republicans. You still have issues with homeowners insurance and some other issues like that, but if Republicans actually get away with reducing property taxes in some significant way, voters are not going to complain. Not in the short term. They may complain in the long term. If you just when they see, oh, that road wasn't repaired, and the county government or the city government's going, well, we don't have the money.
That new fire station didn't open in my community. Yeah, serious stuff.
But I think it's look, a lot can happen in 8 months, but I do think it's a very tough road in Florida for Democrats.
What else is on your list there?
My list?
Santa's political helper?
Two-egg.
Yeah. We're all waiting with bated breath.
Well, I mean, if you
well,
don't care.
why we're on legislature? I know you're dying to talk about two-egg.
Well, no, I'm not dying to talk about two-egg, but, and another thought would be that, we've had unusually bad blood between the House and the Senate. And it's going to be interesting to see what impact that has on legislation. Often the result of that, if there's an inability to compromise between the two chambers, is that
Perez, like loggerheads.
Yeah, is that nothing gets done. So then mandatory bills, you pass the budget, you pass a handful of other bills that have to be passed, and then you pass some bills that are not very controversial. But if you're struggling to compromise and you can't, then not much gets done. And it's sort of interesting that the divide is not between Republicans and Democrats. The divide is between Republicans in the House and Republicans in the Senate.
Why is that?
That's not unusual. If you go back to the days when the Democrats ran both chambers for decades and decades and decades, they fought among themselves all the time. And in part, back in the day, it was a battle between conservative Democrats, who ultimately became Republicans, and moderate to liberal Democrats over issues. So you're sort of having the same thing. There's fewer moderate Republicans in the House and the Senate, but they're there. And you're going to have these kinds of squabbles over issues. And I don't entirely understand why there's such strong disagreement between the Senate President and the House Speaker. I don't know if it's personality driven or issue driven. But the other notable thing in this legislative session is it's Ron DeSantis' last swing at the bat. The old college baseball player, his team's mostly lost. The old college baseball player, this is.
You don't follow sports.
Sports. It's. I think he's going to try to remain as strong a governor as he can be with the legislature, but we've already seen some signs of, you're leaving, Ronnie, goodbye, But he's still the governor. He still has a veto. He can still use executive orders for things. So for the next 8 or 9 months, he's going to have an impact. We just don't know what it's going to be. And he's going to be threatening with that veto pen over this legislature. So they're going to have to pass legislation that they can, that if they feel strongly enough about it, that they can assure themselves that they can override his veto.
Before we get to scrambled eggs, or now two eggs, a few things I wanted to touch on, get your thoughts. I was thumbing through some articles, including a Herald article, talked about unresolved issues on immigration, guns, social media. The U.S. Supreme Court is going to hear a challenge to the Florida law post-Parkland massacre, preventing people from under the age of 21 from buying rifles. There's been a fight about that for the last few years. First, to your thoughts on that. It's not gone anywhere in the last several years, despite attempts to roll back that law. But a lot of people are going to be looking at that this year, certainly a lot of people from Parkland.
It's not like there's been a shortage of mass shootings in this country since Parkland. This is what Florida voters want. They vote for people who are very pro-gun. what I've always been amused by is the hypocrisy of the legislature when it comes to let's allow guns on college campuses, let's allow 18-year-olds to have guns. But if I wanted to bring a gun into the legislative gallery, they'd be no. Well, why not? If I want to bring a gun into some committee meetings, it's going to be no. Well, why not? I thought you were all let guns be everywhere. Well, everywhere except around me is what the legislative point of view. So, look, this is what voters want. This is what, Florida is a pro-gun state, and it always has been.
As we begin to segue to a lighter topic, which I think we could all use in 2026, redistricting. We talk about it a lot, but it's upon us now. And we've got 28 congressional seats, 20 Republican, 8 Democrat. You redistrict and flip it through a few of those, it's going to be very interesting for the midterms what the map looks like. We've already seen Texas do it and others. Does Florida become part of that big national story about flipping enough seats that it could help Republicans ensure that they hold on to congressional control?
Well, I don't, we're hearing a little bit less about doing midterm redistricting in Florida. Honestly, with the enormous control they have in the state, the overwhelming majority of the congressional delegation, super majorities in the House and the Senate, they have all the statewide offices. I mean, what more power do you need?
Right.
You have overwhelming voter registration
right.
in your favor.
Deep pockets.
I think we're about as red as you can get. So, you want to add another seat or two? Sure, go ahead. But, I mean, you're going to get those additional seats after the 2030 election anyway because of population shift. Yeah. So California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, they're going to lose Illinois. They're going to lose congressional seats. They're going to go to Texas and Florida and some other states. And Republican control of the Electoral College will be even stronger. So so we're going to sometime in 2026 or 2027 redistrict and then do it again 3 or 4 years later. What are we gaining?
Florida faces Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff, big-time political operative, and Marco Rubio, who, born and bred in Miami politics, eventually the Florida House Speaker, United States Senator, now Secretary of State, deeply involved in all that we're talking about from Venezuela to Greenland to Israel, the crisis there. Who'd have thunk it that Florida would be the center of the political universe in the way that it is now? Your thoughts?
Well, yes, Florida is enormously influencing what goes on in the White House. But we're in the early stages of a lot of stuff, including Venezuela and other things that we apparently want to do around Latin America and South America. But we may have to be really careful what we wish for. Are we creating enemies or are we creating friends? When we talk about taking over Greenland, why? I mean, with this imperialist notion that we're developing about our control of the Western Hemisphere is interesting. But, you can also create long-term enemies. And you may wind up with countries who start looking at China or other places for support and abandon us. And so it'd be interesting. I don't know if they're right or wrong in the approach that they're taking with some of these things, but I would say Greenland, really?
Keep our eyes on it. All right, you're about to chew up that piece of paper here. I think we could all use it in the first months of the year. A little lighter note. 2 Eggs and Faye Dunaway. Take it away, sir.
Oh, goodness. So you haven't been to 2 Egg?
No, I'm afraid I've not been to 2
Have you heard about 2 Egg?
I've not heard about 2 Egg.
Some Florida boy you are.
Yeah.
Well, 2 Egg is actually a community.
And yet I was able to make it in Florida for all these years. Anyway, go ahead. I'm ruining the moment.
2 Egg is actually a community.
Right. You're cracking me up.
Well, don't scramble it.
Okay.
About an hour west of Tallahassee.
Okay.
Has 200 or 300 people that lived there. It was created around the time of the Depression, and they had a single store. And according to the story, a traveling salesman was in the store one day when some children were sent by their mother to pay for some goods, and the only way they could pay was with 2 eggs.
2 eggs.
2 eggs became the standard for buying things in the store.
Wow.
You brought 2 eggs.
You bartered with
so
your
the
eggs.
community became known as 2 Egg.
2 Egg Florida.
And they recently put up a historical marker, and one of the road signs most stolen in the state of Florida is the road signs that at the crossroads that say 2 Egg.
Oh.
So if you haven't been to 2 Egg and you got a little time, you may want to go up to the Panhandle in Jackson County and go visit 2 Egg.
So if you come to a yolk in the road, I couldn't resist. Where are you going to get stuff like this? 2 Egg. That's why I love this guy. Faye Dunaway quickly, and then a
Faye
closing
Dunaway
thought.
apparently was born near 2 Egg.
And you clearly visited there frequently in your days as Tallahassee.
Well, if I want to get scrambled.
We viewers everywhere. So, early in the year for these guys.
Anyway, look it up, 2 Egg.
Oh my God. Always a pleasure. You're not going to get stories about 2 Egg and Faye Dunaway anywhere else but from Brian here. Oh my gosh. And the bad humor. Because I know my wife is sitting somewhere saying, and my daughter's like, oh gosh, why do you do that? Final thoughts. It's going to be an interesting year. We're just setting the table. It's such a big table in Florida. You and I always kid. No lack of news, and we could talk for hours on end, but top of mind Florida, we are really rounding into our second 6 months of the top of mind Florida effort, really enjoying it. And we're going to have a lot of political players, a lot of newsmakers, a lot of fascinating people this year. It's always a pleasure to be sitting here with you, buddy.
Well, I've been getting great comments. People are really enjoying what we're doing, and we hope that people are commenting. And on TikTok, we got a ton of comments recently.
Do you ever think you'd be a TikTok guy?
Well, you know, I am kind of young and cool, but so
I'm not far behind you, so I can't. Yes, we are.
So I'm really grateful for the people who are watching or listening and commenting and subscribing. I hope if you haven't subscribed, I hope you will. And thank you for participating in Top of Mind Florida.